Yeah, so you can imagine like 10, 15 children, they're playing, and they're playing whatever game they're playing, and they're forcing Imam Nawawi to join them in playing this game with them. And Imam Nawawi is saying, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. So he's reading the Quran and he's being forced to play. So there's a sheikh who was passing by, name is Sheikh Yasin al-Marrakshi, right? He's mentioned in the works of Tabaqat as being from Marrakesh. I'm sure most of us know where Marrakesh is, right? And he was a Sufi, and his profession was that he was a Hajjam. Hajjam is someone who does hijama. I'm sure nowadays we know what hijama is, right? There's shops out there nowadays, right? You can do it. So that was his profession. He was an unknown entity. He was dark skinned, they say he was black, and he was from Marrakesh. He had settled in Damascus and thereabouts. He was passing by and he saw this incident. What's the incident he's seeing? He's seeing a child reading the Quran, being forced to play, and he doesn't want to play. So Marrakesh said that when I saw this, I felt sorry for him. So I took him to the side, and then I asked him what's his name. I took him to his father, and I said to his father, you need to look after this child, because if you were to pay attention to his studies, he will become the greatest scholar of his time. So the father said that, are you a soothsayer? Yeah, a munajjimun anta, they say, are you a soothsayer? He says, no, I am not the soothsayer, but this is something that Allah has made me say to you. This is all he said. He says, ilham, something that I felt, and you should pay attention to this. So this is exactly what his father did. His father did no different. This is one narration. The other one is that he didn't go to his father, Yusuf Yasin Marrakeshi, went to his maktab teacher, okay? The teacher that he's studying from, saying, look after this person and make sure he learns properly, because he'll become a great scholar. So these are the two incidents that we have regarding Imam Nawawi at an early stage. Thereafter we know nothing until when he's 18 years old. That's the next thing we find in his biography, right? So there's a gap, right? And this is common. This tends to be the case, right? We know little about the early period of many individuals. I would say even of the Prophet ﷺ. The Meccan period, we know little about it. Compared to what we know about the Medinan period, if you were to look even in the Seerah works, comparatively it's little. Yeah, there are gaps. There are gaps. We don't know what's happening at this point, at that point, like that. Yeah. By the Meccan period, I mean pre-Nubuwah. Okay? Of course, once he's Nabi, then we have all things. But his childhood, we've got snippets, and they are important ones, but it's not as detailed as what we see of the Prophet's biography once he's become Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right, so he travels to Damascus at the. I mean, shall we start looking at some of the what can we derive from these things from now? Can we look at this, or shall we leave it for a later stage? We can do it now. Right. So, what are some of the lessons that we can draw from this early period? Right. Two, I would say two, for the time being. One of them is that part of his piety has to do with his father, yeah, and there's precedent of this found in the Quran and in the Sunnah as well. That if you want your children to be pious, then a person has to be pious as well. Yeah. So we know, for example, that his father is a pious person, right? And it's through his piety that is translating onto what? Onto his child. The Quran mentions وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا in the story of Musa and Khadir. Musa and Khadir. If you know about the story about them going into a village that is inhospitable, but yet Khadir sees a wall that is about to fall down, and then he repairs it. And Musa alayhi salam says, why do you want to repair this wall for? Because the people over here did not host us, and they were not hospitable to us. They're a bunch of misers. This is what he's saying. So in the end, Khadir says, I did it because there was a treasure underneath it that the father left behind. He's passed away, he left behind for his children. Now if this wall was to have fallen, then the treasure would have been discovered by the people of this town, and they would not have given it to the heirs who deserve it, because they're too young yet. Yeah, they would have appropriated it, misappropriated it, and therefore he did this. Yeah, so we know this from the Salaf. We know this from the Salaf. So many of the Salaf. For example, Sa'id al-Musayyab, who is the son-in-law of Abu Hurairah, would pray extra rak'ah. He would pray extra salah for his son, saying, I'm going to pray extra rak'ah now that I have a child, for his piety, like this. So if the parent is pious, then this will translate into what the children as well. Yeah, the other thing we can see from an early age, it's do you think it's normal for a child at the age of 7 to see Laylatul Qadr? It's not normal, but we can see that Allah's grace was with him from an early age, Yeah, so this is important. Right, his youth then. We also know that he memorized the Quran. He mentioned this. He memorized the Quran before he's reached the age of puberty. Yeah, and this is customary. Most of the scholars we find who are greats, with the exceptions, had memorized the Quran at a relatively young age, and he also, rahimahullah, was no exception. Right, so we look at his youth then. He travels to Damascus. He mentions that his father accompanies him to Damascus. So he's from Nawa. Yeah, we've not mentioned this, have we? Right, Imam Nawawi is from Nawa. The name comes from there. Right, and it's rather ironic because in the past, scholars would associate themselves with the place